I started this YouTube channel about 3 weeks ago, which means that I have been playing and collecting Magic cards for about 3 weeks. And today I want to do something different. I want to share with you guys my experience with Magic the Gathering as a complete beginner. As I said already, I've only been in the world of Magic for 3 weeks. I started collecting cards, and as soon as I did, I said I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I want to share everything I do within the world of Magic with you guys. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any gameplay from when I played Magic because I played it with some friends and everything, and I didn't want to bother everyone with recording gameplay while we played. But what I did do is I did take notes on my notebook about what I thought of the game as we're going through it. And today, I'm going to tell you guys everything I liked and I didn't like about Magic for the last 3 weeks as a complete beginner. If you guys are new to the channel, I would love it if you subscribe because I want to continue sharing everything Magic with you guys. If you're beginners and you don't know anything, we're going to learn together. Or if you guys are experienced Magic the Gathering players, I'd love for you guys to help me out in the comments down below what I should do better, what I could do differently, because I will have questions for you guys at the end of the video. If you're beginners like me, ask some questions in the comments and let's see if I can help you guys, or maybe someone else who's also watching this video will be able to comment and help us learn as we go. And hopefully by telling you guys what I liked and didn't like, it's going to give you guys the best way to start playing for yourself. And while you're there subscribing and commenting, why not give this video a thumbs up? Because for whatever reason, that helps the YouTube algorithm. Now, to keep myself as organized as possible in this video, I divided this into 5 separate parts. I want to talk about Magic the Gathering Arena. I want to talk about standard play. I want to talk about Commander. I'm going to talk about just my general likes and dislikes. And then at the end, I'm going to have some things that I'd like to see improved on in the game in the future, and just some general questions that I'd love to have some experienced players maybe help me out with. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is Magic the Gathering Arena, which is the digital version of the game. You can play it on your phone. There is a mobile version of it, and of course on PC. And the reason I started with this one is because I came from a background of Marvel Snap, which is another digital game. And once I finally kind of stopped playing that game and I started having an itch for playing another digital card game, I was recommended to jump into Magic the Gathering Arena. And jumping into it, the good thing I want to say right away, all the things that I liked, is first of all, it is free. If you guys don't know yet if you want to get into Magic, of course, if you're going to start playing with the physical cards, you have to purchase something. You can't really play for free unless you have friends who also have the game. But if you wanted to try it, the best way to try it is definitely with the app because it's free to download and will get you right into the game. And they are very generous with the starting of at the game by giving you guys a lot of different decks, different colors of stuff, and then you can slowly start buying stuff. But it is a good way to start. Another really good positive about Magic the Gathering Arena is that it has a great tutorial, in my opinion, in that it helps you understand all the rules and the turn order and everything, because it doesn't let you make any mistakes. It's going to always prevent you from doing what you can't do, and it's always going to highlight what to do. And the tutorial itself, though it does take a while, will let you play with each of the 5 colors at least once. So you're going to start getting right away an idea of what's the difference between a blue deck, a white deck, a black deck, and so on. And it helps you kind of understand what colors you might like to play. And of course, while playing the game, the animations are also really cool. So that obviously adds that you can't really have when you're playing a physical card game, but the animations of all the cards activating is also really good. Now, one of the biggest things that I really liked about Magic the Gathering Arena is that it helped me understand some of the rules and some of the activation orders of the game. This is a game that has so much that happens sometimes where one card could activate a lot of things, and it could get a little bit overwhelming as to what are you supposed to do and when are you supposed to do it. And if there's one thing that Arena really helped me with is to understand what order to do certain things, or whenever I do get the chance to choose what activates and doesn't activate. So this is probably some of the best things about the Arena app. Now let's talk about the things I didn't like about Arena. The first thing is pretty simple. You don't really get a social interaction at all, right? Because Magic is normally a physical card game. You're always going to be playing with somebody. So when you're playing Arena, the positive is if you don't have anyone to play with, it's an option, but it's never going to be the same than playing with some actual friends around the table. And it is a huge difference of how much fun Magic the Gathering Arena is versus just Magic the Gathering in person, because you don't have that social aspect. So that is a big negative for it. Now, here's another issue I have with the game, which is specific to beginners like me. The opponent turns are extremely overwhelming and they don't slow down. So what I mean by that is that while you're playing Arena, during your turn, you have the time to look at your cards, understand what's going on, and really choose the right one you want to do. Then, when it's your opponent's turn, everything just happens super quick and it's right away back to your turn. And sometimes you don't really know what happened. It can be super frustrating as a new player to try and understand what card did he play, what does it do, how did that affect me, why are my cards not on the board anymore, and the game doesn't slow down to explain it to you, which can be super frustrating. Whereas if you're playing with friends and someone plays a card, they tell you what's going on, but you can always ask, like, can I read it for myself? Can I see? Can I kind of understand? And everyone can kind of slow everything down. That's not going to happen with Arena, and for beginners, I don't think that that's a good way to play the game. So for Magic the Gathering Arena itself, I do think it's a good way to learn the game. Just jump in, do the tutorial, play all 5 decks, but honestly, if you're a beginner, I would pass on playing past that, because I do feel like you're not going to get the full experience and not the best experience about Magic. So I would say download the app, understand the game via the tutorials, but once you've got that, really try and start playing in person. Now, I did play the game in person, and when I did, I played 2 different modes. I know there's way more than 2 different modes to play in, so if you guys want to comment all the different game modes in the comments down below, go right ahead, but I'm going to focus on 2, Standard and Commander. In Standard mode, the game is 1v1 only. You're each going to build a deck of 60 cards, and you're just going to play it out. Some of the positives of that is that because it's 1v1, they are fast-paced games. Every game I played took about 20 to 30 minutes at most. Even as a beginner, I felt like I was able to catch up and understand, and we were powering through the game very quickly. The fact that it's a 60-card deck also means that you are going to hit your combos way easier than a 100-card deck, which we're going to talk about later in Commander. Because there's 60 of them, you're going to draw a lot of the same cards over and over again, and because you're allowed duplicates in it, it does mean that you are more likely to be able to pull off some of the combos in there too. And of course, because you're playing 1v1, there's a lot less to keep track of. You just got to look at your own deck, your opponent's field, and that's pretty much it. So it is a little bit easier to follow along what's going on. Now, for the things I didn't like about Standard mode is that it is 1v1 only, which for me, I have now a big group of people who all like playing Magic, so the 1v1 is not our go-to. We'd love to play more than that. And also, because it's 1v1, because it's a 60-card deck, every time I've played, I felt the game was taken more seriously than I wanted to. I'm not looking to jump into the competitive scene, so seeing this and having people really trying to build the strongest deck possible, for me, didn't add too much of my enjoyment, because I am playing as a beginner. So every time I played with people, they were pulling off these combos where they were beating me in the first 2 or 3 turns and not really giving me a chance to understand what's going on. So on the it's way more competitive to play 1v1 than it is what we're going to talk about after with the Commander mode. And obviously, on top of the competitive side of play, it is way more meta focused. So what I mean by that is that if you are playing a certain color deck, for example, I don't know yet, but I'm using it as an example. If you're playing a blue and green deck and your opponent purposely chooses the perfect counter deck to you, you're going to lose, and there's not much you can do about that. So it is very much more meta focused, and from what I understand, from what people have told me in person, you are going to have to always keep up way more with like getting new decks of new cards that are going to fit your deck to be the strongest, because people take this mode way more seriously. So Standard mode in general as a beginner is a good way to play the game. It is going to help you understand. It is a little bit easier to follow because it's 1v1, and if you're able to play with some nice people who let you actually try your cards out and understand what's going on and allow you to make mistakes, it could be fun. But if you sit around with the wrong group of people who are all taking this game way more seriously than you want to, it can get very frustrating to feel like you are playing a very serious competitive game, even though you're a beginner who may not have all the best cards to try and keep up with. So for me, even though this was a fun way, it's not my favorite way to play the game. My favorite way to play Magic the Gathering is Commander mode, so let's jump into it. So when I got into Magic the Gathering, every single person told me, you gotta play Commander mode. This is the way you need to play the game. Everyone, all of my friends, all of the viewers over on Twitch, anyone who I talked to said Commander mode is the way to play. And now that I played it many times, I can agree this is the best way to play Magic in my opinion. If you guys don't know, Commander mode is a mode where you are going to build a deck of 100 cards, where one of those cards is your commander, so your main hero that's always going to be on the side, and you can summon him at any point you want during the game, and you're going to build that deck to be the best way to combo with that card, and it can only be the colors of that card. So for example, with this deck, which is a pre-made deck that I got right over here, in that deck, the main hero is a red, blue, and white, which means that all my cards have to just be those 3 colors, which makes it really fun that you are building a deck specifically based on your commander. I felt like the deck building for that is so fun, because you're trying to combo everything with a specific character. Another really cool thing about the deck building for this one and why I like Commander mode is because it's only one unique card per deck. So you never have to worry about, do I need 2 of these, 3 of these, 4 of these, or whatever the rules are. I don't know how much is the limit, but how many of each cards are allowed to be in a deck. It's max 1 per card. That makes your deck feel so much more alive, more personality. I'll give you an example. When I open up this deck over here, and I, let's say, play, I don't know, I'm going to choose a card at random here. The Boss Chauffeur, right over here, this card. I don't know if it's going to focus. There you go. The Boss's Chauffeur. There is only one of these in my deck, which means that I'm not playing a card. I am playing the Boss's Chauffeur. It adds so much more personality to the game, in my opinion. So I definitely feel like it makes the deck building so much better because it adds that every single card feels really good. And it means that when you draw that card, you are getting excited that you pulled that one out. It also makes it that the replayability of every single deck is way higher. You got to build a deck of 100 cards. You're not going to draw all 100 cards in a game. So you got to make sure that all your cards work together, but some of them synergize separately from the others too. So every time you play, maybe on this turn, I'm going to focus on a squirrel, on my deck of squirrels, but in the same deck, I might have some spiders or some rats or something like that. So it's always going to change it up every single play because it has to depend on what I draw. Such a good way to play, and I love, love, love the 100 card style deck. And of course, my favorite thing about Commander mode is that it's not just 1v1. You could play this game 2, 3, and even 4 players. And I'm gonna guess you could probably play this 5 or 6 players, but I don't think I'd recommend it because the game would probably last a full day. But I don't see how it could stop you from playing it. But you could play this 2, 3, or 4 players. You're all sitting around the table. You all have your health bar. You all have your deck. You all have your commander. And then you start playing. And that's such a big game changer. The main reason why is because the competitive side of it is thrown out the window. You all have a chance of winning this because there's a social aspect to it. It feels a lot more like a board game than just a competitive card game because you can make these deals. So I'll give you an example. I was playing once and one of our friends drew their best cards, started playing extremely well, and all 3 of us could not keep up. So what did we do? We all agreed. We shook hands, we spit in our hand, we shook hands, and we said, let's not attack each other. Let's focus this guy. And then we all started working together to defeat this person. And then we all started pulling off these combos where one of my friends plays a group hug deck, which means that he can give me bonuses and it helps him as well. And we started sharing abilities. There's a lot more of a social aspect where you're not just attacking one another. You're also trying to convince others to not attack you, right? So in a 1v1, what is your opponent going to do? His options are to fight you or do nothing. But in this mode, when you're playing 3 or 4 players, I may be very weak and they can attack me, but if I am good enough of a talker to convince them to attack someone else, there is that part of it that adds to the game. And I feel like it makes everyone have a lot more fun. We're all smiling and laughing because there's a different side to the game that you don't get in the other mode. And then I also obviously talked in standard mode that one of the best things is pulling off your combos, and because it's 1v1, it is a lot faster. In this mode, it is slower. It does take a lot longer to pull off your combos because there are 4 people playing, so you're going to play one card, and then you're going to wait a long time before it comes back to you. So the game feels a lot longer, which is a negative. I'm going to say it now. The games take way longer, which is a negative. But the positive is the build-up, the anticipation, and when you finally pull off your combo, it feels so much more satisfying than all the other modes I've played that it took me an hour, let's say. But after an hour, once I got my army of squirrels on the board, man, I felt so powerful. And I feel like I was actually able to get to that point, unlike when I was playing standard or arena, where the games kind of ended so quickly that I didn't actually get to do the synergy of all my cards. But with Commander, I did get there where because there's so many of us and it took a lot longer, I wasn't always getting attacked. So over time, I saw my combos get hit and it was super satisfying. I only have 2 main negatives about Commander mode. The first one being the games take so long. Every single time we played it, it took us over 2 hours, except for one game of 3 players that took us an hour and 35 minutes. Every other game I played was over 2 hours as soon as we were 3 or 4 players, and that is a little excessive in my opinion for a card game. Now, the other negative is connected to that is when someone gets eliminated early. Now, luckily, with our group of friends, whenever we played, we were trying to be generous and nice to each other and not eliminate each other like focus on one person too quickly. But it has happened twice now in our 10 games where one of us got eliminated in the first hour and a half, and then they kind of had to just sit there and watch everyone else play for another 30, 40, 50 minutes because they were the first ones eliminated. So there is a negative part of it there where, depending on who you play with, if you get eliminated quickly and you are just a group of friends around the table, you could end up sitting there for a while doing nothing, just kind of waiting for the game to end. So those are two, in my opinion, major negatives for Commander mode. But I don't think that should stop you from playing this mode if you're going to play Magic. I still think this is the best way. So I talked about Arena, I talked about Standard, I talked about Commander. You guys understand now what I like and not like about each of the modes. But now I just want to talk about Magic the Gathering as a whole. What do I think about the game across everything? Well, first things first, I think this game is awesome. I'm so excited and so happy that I finally got into this. I understand why everyone says it's an expensive hobby, but I also kind of made it more expensive for myself than I probably should have. I don't think I need to buy this much stuff as I have. If you don't know how much I bought, just watch the channel. You'll see that every 2 days, I post something that I open, a bundle, a booster, commander that I bought, everything. So I kind of went a little overboard. So it is an expensive hobby, but it is an extremely fun one. I love the mechanic of the game. Every turn you're going to play mana. The mana can be used to play cards. The idea behind it is so simple, but with the amount of cards and the amount of decades long of refreshments and updating the game, does feel like there's so many opportunities, so many different combos you can hit, and everything feels so good to play. When you start drawing your cards and you see in your hands like, oh my god, this will work with that and that will work with it, it feels so exciting to have like your hands, and you feel like a little kid that getting giddy, being like, is it my turn now? Is it my turn? Do I get to play my combo? Such a fun thing. Another really good thing is that I love that there are 5 colors. So right, every color, every card fits within black, white, red, blue, or green, and it means that each of those colors have different styles of play. So if you get sick of playing a certain type, of card, just switch to another color and it feels almost like a new card game because you're playing it so differently from the previous. Then if you take away just the unique one and you start combo, red and white, red and black, red and green, red and blue will all feel different from one another. And then you have the tricolor combos where it's 3 colors. And I'm sure there's even 4 and 5 colors. I just never seen that. But there are so many opportunities to build decks and play the game completely differently. And that's awesome. Obviously, there's also the super satisfaction of opening up a deck of card and finding a rare card. This is obviously not just playing the game, but just opening and playing. You pull something like this and the first thing you want to do is put in a little sleeve, and it's so exciting now that I have it, and every time my friends come over, I'm like, look what I got. It is so fun to not only open packs of cards and seeing what they can do for your combos, but also just seeing when you draw a rare card, or just sharing with your friends, like, what did you get? What did you open in your booster? That fun experience of just sharing everything with your friends and sharing everything with you guys is obviously another awesome part. Now, one of the big reasons why I started playing Magic the Gathering now is, of course, because of Bloom Barrel. And that's another big positive for me, is the card art. Now, when I look at Bloom Barrel stuff in general, all the raccoons, the otters, the squirrels, and all that, they are adorable. And looking at the art style of all these cards, it's a beautiful game. But I do think that that's a very just maybe a good timing for me that I jumped into the Bloom Barrel stuff, because I've seen some of the older cards, and yeah, the art's always been really good, but something about Bloom Barrel just really spoke to me, and I feel like it was a good time for me to jump in now, especially also because I'm a big fan of scary movies and horror type things, and that's the next thing that's coming out. And then we've got Marvel coming out next year. It feels like I'm in the perfect time to jump into Magic for the art style side of things. So that's obviously a big positive for me as well. Now, let me just tell you guys some of the things I don't like about this game. Now, I've obviously been raving a lot about how much I like the game. So even with all these negatives that I'm about to say, none of them are stopping me from playing the game, and none of them should stop you guys from giving this game a shot. However, they are important things that I think everyone should know about Magic the Gathering. The most important thing, in my opinion, is that I feel like there are just too many terms, too many rules, and too many card descriptions. And it gets overwhelming and you can really get lost. Every single card has keywords, but not every single keyword is explained on every single card. So you're going to have your phone open or your computer open and just type MTG Haste. What does that mean? MTG Scry 1, Survey 2. all of these things feel so overwhelming, and it's people told me like you'll pick it up very quickly. It's been 3 weeks and I'm still very lost on what the heck's the difference between scry and survey. There are literally just small minor differences between each, but they are very important, so it can get very difficult to keep track of. Obviously, on top of that, I feel like a lot of the activation order of some things can be very tricky, and I found it that it wasn't explained properly in the game or in the rules. And when I look up online, there's a lot of different articles that are explaining it differently. I'll give you guys an example. I had a card that was whenever a monster dies, something happens. And then someone did a board wipe, which a board wipe means everything dies. So something died, but the card that also has that ability also died. And then we had a 20-minute fight around the table about whether or not that card gets to activate or not activate, because we couldn't understand, does the card die first, so then all the other cards that died after, the activation doesn't happen, or do I get to choose to kill all the other things first, and then they all activate, then the card who has that ability dies after. Such little things like that I wish were a little bit simpler, and it's like I would want to recreate it in Arena and see what does the app decide for us, but obviously it's not something I can just immediately check. And when I looked online, it wasn't super easy to find the answer to those questions. A small little gripe that I have as well is luck of the draw. You're playing a deck of 100 cards or you're playing a deck of 60 cards. If you're unlucky and you just don't draw well, you might not have a good time playing this game. So that is obviously something to keep track of as well, that if you're going to play Magic the Gathering, don't just decide whether you like it or not like it in your first game to 2 games. You might need to play this game 10 to 15 times, because if you're a very unlucky person and you just never get to draw the cards that you need to pull off your combo, you're not going to have a good time. And that's unfortunate, but it is part of it. You can't really control what cards you draw. It's random, obviously. So if you're lucky, you might pull off your awesome combos. But there are some times, and it's happened to me, especially in my first 2 or 3 games, that I was drawing really good cards, but I had no mana, so I could just never play them. And then when we finished the game and I was eliminated, I looked, and I had 15 mana at the bottom of my 100 card deck. That could be very frustrating, but it is part of it. And probably the biggest thing that I don't like about the game is trying to keep track of everything. Now, what I mean by that is that the game, and I've talked about this in a lot of my videos now, when you buy a bundle or commander deck, they give you these little tokens here. And they're very, first of all, very bad quality. I don't know if I can zoom in and you guys will see it. Very, very bad quality here. You can see this is a +1/+1. This is a flying marker. And you have a bunch of these little things. They also give you these, so in case you don't have tokens, you can use this as a token replacement. And I also just have a set of dice. I feel like when you're playing the game, there are so many things that happen to your cards that they give it a +1 attack or a +1 defense or +6, or you have to make 15 extra tokens on the board. There are so many things that you have to keep track of, and there aren't any, in my opinion, easy or good ways to do so. These things are so flimsy, they are so pointless, and they're not super great in my opinion, and it makes it very hard. So if you have a deck like mine where this is the deck I bought, it was a pre-made one where I just build an army of squirrels. I don't have enough cards or enough tokens to have the 15 squirrels that my main commander builds. So what I end up having is I have 2 cards of token squirrels, and then I have 2 of these that are more token squirrels, and then I got to use 2 of these things to make more token squirrels, and then I had to grab like a box and pretend the box was something else, and then I had to put a +1 die on each and every one of them because they all got stronger. It just feels super not easy and inconvenient, and I wish that there was some way that they can figure out a way to make this easier. And this is one of my first questions is, what do you guys do to keep track of buffs and nerfs and damage, even just damaging cards? Like, how do you keep track? Because obviously if a card has high defense and you attack it or you lower its health, you have to find a way to keep track of it. All of these things I found very, very difficult to keep track of. So if you guys have techniques, please let me know in the comments. And the last major improvement that I'd like to see with Magic the Gathering in general across everything is cutting down the text of the abilities on a card. So for example here, I've got the Loyal Warhound, and I'm going to zoom it in. There you go. So if you see there, it says Vigilant. It's a keyword, that's fine. But underneath it says, when Loyal Warhound, the name of it again, enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you, search your library for a basic playing card, then put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffled. I feel like that is too much text to say something that could be done way easier. First of all, don't say the name again. Just say when this enters. We know what card you're talking about, so I don't know why it says Loyal Warhound again. So there are little things like that that I just wish across the board every single card text could be simplified and the abilities would still make sense. It would just make it less overwhelming for a beginner and new players to follow. Unless, again, if we have any experienced players who want to explain to me why is it so important that we have when Loyal Warhound enters instead of when this enters, I'd love to know, but I feel like there aren't any good reasons in 2024 to have so much text on a card. You could probably cut out a lot of it and the card will still make sense. And then obviously it will just make new players easier and less scared to try the game out. All right, that was a lot, but I wanted to share everything with you guys. I thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. I'd love to know what you guys think of the game. Are you excited to try it? Are you playing it? Are you like it? And tell me everything about Magic in the comments. I have so many more videos ready to go up for you guys as well, so make sure to subscribe because we have a bunch more unboxing. We've got another video about a beginner's guide on that I'm slowly working on what I think you guys should buy and not buy. So if you guys want to hear about that, make sure to comment as well and subscribe. There's been a lot. Thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your day. See you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.